Welcome back to the Mind Over Matter podcast with your hosts Fatima Rojabali and
Fatima Zaidi.
Wow, it literally feels like forever since we have done this. Well, it has been like 4 months.
Yeah, it's been has it been 4 months? Sorry.
Yeah, a lot has happened in that time. So I don't know how many of you listened to our last episode, but we've had a lot of, personal changes in that time. So part of the reason why we haven't been able to record is because I moved to London. I got married 4 months ago.
Woo.
But yes, finally back in Birmingham. So really excited to record this episode.
Me too. Like, we just had a catch-up session before this and it was so nice. So we're finally glad to be back on. So the other day, Fatima and I were just talking about like how we've both grown up bilingual. One thing that was woven into so many of our everyday conversations were proverbs, which are like short, powerful sayings our parents and other family members would drop into a sentence, almost like really casually without like thinking even.
Yeah.
And they were like little moments of wisdom, sometimes comforting, sometimes like a wake-up call, but always like really memorable. As you know, Fatima and I come from different backgrounds. I'm Pakistani and Fatima's Indian, and with that comes two rich linguistic traditions. We've both grown up with completely different sets of sayings, stories, and ways of looking at life. And in today's episode, we wanted to give an ode to our cultures by sharing some of the proverbs that stuck with us the most.
Yeah, so actually the examples I'll be using today incorporate Kutchi, Gujarati, as well as Swahili phrases. So for those of you who don't know, I am ethnically Khoja, so that means that my ancestral roots are from Western India, more specifically Gujarat. So Kutchi is a dialect of Gujarati, and over time we migrated to East Africa, so that's where I was born and raised, and I lived there for 7 years in Tanzania before moving to the UK. So yeah, there definitely is a very rich cultural and linguistic landscape to be explored today.
Very cool. So we'll unpack essentially the meanings of the proverbs and explore what they can teach us about life today. So whether you grew up hearing these sayings or they're completely new to you, join us as we dive into the lessons tucked inside these timeless words.
Yes, let's go.
Shall I start with the first one?
Yeah, go for it.
So the first one that I have in Urdu is Neki kar darya mein dal, which is do a good deed and then throw it in the river. So the idea essentially comes from when you do something good or a good deed, then kind of like let it go.
Yeah.
Don't broadcast it, don't seek recognition or expect anything back.
Yeah.
So an obvious example may be charity, like don't announce how much you've donated. I think the Prophet said something along the lines of the best charity is given so secretly that your left hand doesn't know what your right hand has given.
Yeah.
And so I think the main quality being spoken about here is avoiding arrogance. So doing a good deed makes us feel good about ourselves, and so naturally we want to tell people about it so they can see how good we are.
Yeah, so I do actually really love this concept. One could argue though that broadcasting your good deeds can encourage other people to do the same. I think it can also easily lead to pride and arrogance though, rather than purely doing something for the sake of God. So I do see your point. I also think that human beings are so fickle.
Yeah.
Like the praise, validation, or status that we chase today can quickly turn against us. So even just like thinking about celebrities, or even like if you have a favorite influencer, I'm sure at some point they've said something that's like a little bit out of line, or they've done something and cancel culture has turned against them. So I think that kind of just shows how quickly people can change their opinions on you, and cancel culture can sort of destroy that reputation you've tried so hard to seek.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's actually kind of hard if you think about it. For that reason, intention setting is really important for this. For example, before doing any sort of public speaking or debating to raise awareness or help people understand an important issue, the good deed in that is essentially like the service to others. So I try to tell myself, don't do this for the applause or praise after, but purely because you want to deliver something valuable, something you believe is important to say. So the real reward isn't how many people clap, it's in whether I've done justice to the message.
For sure.
And I know I refer to this hadith a lot. I've referred to it in the past as well, like innamal a'malu binniyah. Actions are based on their intentions, but it's actually so applicable to everything that we do in terms of like having ikhlas and sincerity, because then it makes you question like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it for like, to what extent am I doing it for the sake of other people versus myself or God?
Personal gain.
You know?
Yeah. Very thought-provoking concept to think about. Okay, so the second proverb that I wanted to discuss, I think this one is Swahili, and forgive me if I absolutely butcher the saying. I actually am not able to speak much Swahili anymore because, like I said, I moved here when I was 7. So I know a couple words here and there, but anyway. So the statement goes, Haba na haba hujaza kibaba, which literally translates to little by little fills the container. So it just means that small, consistent actions lead to significant results over time. In English, we have a very similar phrase, so like slow and steady wins the race. And yeah, I think it just emphasizes the idea that good things take time, and that so long as you do your part, like the good is guaranteed to come. I think this can very easily be linked to Islam as well. So if you think about the Islamic proverb of tying your camel, it talks about the importance of action while also trusting in God's will. So it just means that we should make diligent effort towards achieving a desired outcome, but we should also acknowledge that ultimately that outcome is in the hands of God. So all you can do is do your best and God will do the rest. So this concept is closely related to the Islamic principle of tawakkul, which again is just the act of relying on God after having done one's best.
I really like that. I think it's so necessary in like the time that we're living in right now, because everything is so fast paced. So when you achieve something little, like it's not something that we tend to celebrate often.
Yeah, you don't celebrate the small wins.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah, so I think that's something that we can really take into account. I like it. The next one that I have is actually kind of funny. It's actually kind of gross too, and a bit hard to explain. But it's Kanjus Makijus, which so imagine a fly fell in your tea. Pretty gross. But what it's saying is someone who's stingy would basically suck the fly dry so that they don't miss out on even the tiny remnants of tea before throwing it away. I know it's so gross, but it's basically a really extreme example of criticizing being so stingy and selfish that you refuse to spend on basic necessities or others' needs.
Yeah.
And I think we've all probably met someone like that. The person who will drive around for an hour to avoid like a £2 parking fee.
We have a very similar saying for this in Gujarati, which says "Jamdi jaye par damdi na jaye." Again, don't know if I pronounced that right, but yeah, it means the same thing. Like you'll be willing to lose your skin, but not a penny.
I like how they're such grotesque examples.
Yeah, why are they so like the imagery is so powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you're so crazy about spending money like to a fault. Like you will harm yourself if it means you can save some money.
Yeah. And I think that's like the last thing that we'd want to be seen as. So I would never want to hear this proverb being used towards me. And of course, it's not referring to wanting to save or encouraging splurging, but it's about having balance.
Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting because there does appear to be this discrepancy between religion and you could say like the living mindset, which I just coined that term. But we often think if we give something, we've lost it. But when you realize your risk was always from God to begin with, you're in this constant state of receiving, whether that's like health, wealth, or other blessings.
That's a really powerful way of thinking about it, actually. I mean, I do want to caveat, obviously there are exceptions, like it doesn't apply to those in poverty, but in general, Islam does emphasize being generous, charitable, and actually giving away that which you love the most, whether it's a material item or money, obviously according to your means.
Yeah, I think the whole point of this one is just to talk about things that you don't need to be stingy about.
Yeah.
So it's not saying like give away, millions and millions.
Yeah.
But don't be so don't hold back so much that it just comes across as, because I feel like it can even damage relationships. And I know if we're going back to the previous point, I know if like a billionaire was listening right now, they'd probably think actually I create my own risk. I went from rags to riches. Yes, your efforts did, but God opens those doors and God provides for you when you're literally in the womb. So even if you don't believe in God, you can't deny the fact that sustenance was provided for you.
I get what you're trying to say. I think another way to think about it is if all risk comes from Allah, then being charitable or generous is you're literally just redistributing that risk to other people.
Yeah.
So maybe God is answering like the prayers of someone else or the du'as of someone else through you, which is a really good honor. So instead of seeing it as like something is being taken away from me, you're just redistributing it to someone who needs it
I love
more.
that. I love that.
So
Yeah.
benefits both parties.
Exactly. Like, God literally says, right? Like, we don't see God in, like, this whole... Like, we don't see, like, his physical form, but we see him through others. Like, we see him through vessels.
Yeah.
So if we're gaining a vessel, then we're becoming a vessel for someone else as well, which is quite nice. I love that.
So the next proverb states, Angri deanti to hat kapito, which means like, I give you a finger and now you want a hand. So basically, the more favors you do for someone, the more they'll expect of you. I think it can also point to the receiver of the favor being ungrateful or unsatisfied with what they received, and basically how like kindness can be taken for weakness if we're not careful. But I do struggle a little bit with this concept, and I don't know what you think. Because then how do we achieve balance? Because modern ethics or society, I think, would encourage us to be individualistic and sort of set boundaries, be selfish, which isn't always a bad thing. But in general, if an act of kindness has strings, is it genuine?
So I think the question that you posed was quite interesting. And I think Imam Ali does address this.
Yeah.
The Prophet once asked him, a man has come to me with this question, but Ali, can you answer? And the man was saying, oh, there's this man that, you know, is just not doing me right. What should I do? Like, you know, he's really irritating me. I'm completely like paraphrasing this. And the Prophet said to Imam Ali, what do you think? What would you do? He was like, well, if he treats me badly, I'll treat him nicely.
Yeah.
And then he was like, okay, but like, what if he's still treating me badly? Then the Prophet was like, what do you think? And then Imam Ali was like, yeah, I'd continue treating him nicely. And then again he basically repeated himself again. And the point was that that Imam Ali said, well, if he's not changing his bad deeds, why should I change my good deeds?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I don't know how to say this without using slang, but don't let yourself be taken for a mug at the same time. You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's another quote by Imam Ali which says something like, don't be so sweet that someone will eat you up, but don't be so bitter that someone will spit you out.
Yeah.
So I think, like, I know these are so like poetic, and it's like, how do you actually relate this to your...
how do you implement it?
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say.
I do get that. And I think the point is just like, know when you're doing it for someone, don't expect something in return.
Yeah, that's
but
a
then
good
if
point.
you do it to that point where you're just giving and giving and giving, and then you're not receiving, not in the sense that you give a gift and then you expect a gift back, or you give a gift and then they don't give you a gift. It's like, some people give in other ways, like through their time, through, you know. So I feel like you need to take that into account as well. Like, it's literally love languages, right? Like acts of service, gift giving, words of affirmation, like that may be their way of giving back, if that makes sense.
Just not thinking of everything as a transaction.
100%.
Like, you can do an act of kindness, but are they necessarily taking advantage of you? Or maybe they're repaying that kindness in other ways that you don't see, I think, is your point.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good way to think about it.
I feel like there's another hadith. I need to find it. It was in Sheikh Shamali's book with his wife on the 40 hadiths.
Yeah.
And one of them was saying something like, if someone does an act of kindness towards you, like, them doing that, they'll get like the reward for that, but then it is upon you, like, it's a right upon you to return that. So as Muslims, like, we have a responsibility to return that, even though you shouldn't expect it. We should do it, you know, like, don't beautiful. Just keep taking it.
Wow.
So the next one I had was Jesse Kearney Vessi Bharni. So as the deed, so the return. Or I think in English that would be what goes around comes around. So psychologically, it's essentially a reminder of behavioral consequences. Our actions plant seeds, and eventually we face their fruits. So if we go a little bit deeper into this, I think the proverb isn't just about simple cause and effect. It can also speak to those vicious cycles that repeat themselves over and over. And maybe this is my job rubbing off on me a little bit, but one pattern I've noticed is with people who lie constantly. Some become such habitual... I'm not swearing there. Some become such habitual liars that they actually start to believe their own lies. And this is actually known as pathological lying. At first, the lie is to trap or manipulate someone else, but in the end, they've trapped themselves, and they can't separate reality from the story they've created. So the deception consumes them too.
So, sociologically, this proverb actually makes me think of social learning theory, in that people learn from observing the consequences of others' actions. So, if people, like for example, if you witness a positive outcome resulting from helping someone, then you might be more likely to engage in behavior that will also give you that outcome. And then conversely, if we might see like a negative consequence following a harmful action, we might be more inclined to avoid it. So I guess, well, for me anyway, it stresses the importance of personal responsibility that we all have to connect with our fitra, so that innate goodness within us, because if we do good, it will not only spread but come back to us in some way.
I like it. It's almost like karma in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
I think there's also a Quranic verse on this where it's like, whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it, and whoever does an atom's weight of evil will see it. So all of those acts hold weight.
My mom told me this one, and it goes Shant Pani Unda Hoy, which means still water runs deep. So if you think of like a lake on a perfectly clear day, it appears shallow, but if you were to jump in, you'd realize it's an illusion because it's much deeper.
Whoa.
So in this context, still water refers to a quiet person who seems unassuming or innocent, but in reality, they may be hiding something. It can be a positive thing, like, I don't know, they're smarter than they seem, or maybe secrets or some sort of negative trait. So I guess the English equivalent would be don't judge a book by its cover, or like it's always the person you least expect to do XYZ who will then go on to do it. So yeah, I guess this proverb could encourage you to have your wits about you, because everything isn't always as it seems. But similarly, we shouldn't be quick to judge people because they could know or possess something that we do not.
Yeah, I like how you showed both the positive and negative side to it.
Thank you.
Because I think when you initially look at it, you're like, oh my god, you can't trust anyone.
Yeah, they're
like,
being deceitful. But it could be good. Like,
could be
what if they
good.
have an unknown wisdom, like, that we don't know about?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that it says, like, still water runs deep, because I think when you get to know someone, you don't really find something out about them immediately. It's like as you get to know them
takes
more, the
time.
layers peel.
Yeah.
So
Wow,
yeah,
it's like an onion.
so yeah, that's a good one. I like it. So the next one I had is Jaisa des Vesa Base. As the country, so the clothing. So I think the English equivalent of that is similar to like when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So the idea that you should try to adapt to your environment or situation wisely. Now, this one's not about losing yourself, it's about reading the room. So in psychology, we call it cultural intelligence, knowing how to navigate different contexts. Pretty sure Imam Ali also has a hadith which states something like, speak to a farmer like a farmer, a politician like a politician. And it's basically saying that wisdom is in connection. And so try to meet people where they are so you can actually reach them.
Yeah, so the point about not losing yourself is particularly important, and sociologically it makes me think of assimilation, which is the process where people or groups of different ethnic heritage are sort of absorbed into the dominant culture of a society. So that process of assimilation involves taking on the traits of that dominant culture. So, I don't know, like as an example, say I immigrated to the UK, I see what the dominant traits are. What are people wearing? How do they speak? How do they dress? Kind of thing. And you slowly start to adopt those behaviors. But while this can be beneficial at times, assimilation is actually a very extreme example, because it involves sort of like it's at a cost to you, basically, because you end up losing your own culture or history, which is not what we want. So I think this proverb is kind of like encouraging you to achieve a middle ground, because it's about seeking social and cultural awareness, like you said.
Yeah, no, definitely exactly that. Because in Mehdi Hassan's book, I think it's called How to Win Every Argument, he says how he says how in order to bring the opposition over to your side, for example, and I think I'm paraphrasing here again, in an audience of far right individuals, don't give them examples of leftists, but individuals from the far right that support what you're trying to say. So essentially appeal to the audience. In order to appeal to the audience, you have to think like them and act like them, because blending in is the smartest way to get your message across sometimes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's quite smart, actually. I don't know why that makes me think of Snape from Harry Potter.
Do you reckon he blended, though? I feel like he stood out.
You have to be a double agent sometimes.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't think about later on in the movies and books. Yeah.
So this next proverb reads Haraka Haraka Heina Baraka, and I think that's Swahili, but it basically means haste makes waste. Essentially, good things take time. And like an everyday example I have of this is making naan, which is something I love to do from scratch, but it takes a lot of patience because you have to combine the dough, leave it to rest for a few hours, and if you rush this process, then obviously you won't get the right consistency and you might have to start over again. So I think this proverb is just sort of pointing to good things take time. Don't rush something. Like even in nature, we have examples like, I don't know, bamboo trees. They can take months or years to grow because the roots first take their time spreading really deep before you get sort of any flowers. But then when they do flourish, they can grow several meters in one day. So yeah, and then I think if you think about it Islamically, Islam also emphasizes patience. So again, not rushing into things. Good things take time, and sometimes rushing into decisions can lead to a lack of clear judgment.
I like that. You know, it's so interesting you mentioned bamboos as the example because we've actually got bamboo trees in our garden right now.
Have you? No way.
Yeah, but like they were around before like the previous owner of the house, so before we bought it.
Yeah.
But the issue is like now that they've started to grow, even if you like cut them down, they're so invasive. Like
they are. Yeah. They grow a lot.
Yeah. So it's so interesting that in the beginning it's so hard to have it grow, and then
it just booms when you least expect it.
So I think that's quite cool because it shows like rizq again, like how we were talking about initially, like when God gives, like it's in abundance.
Yeah, that's
so you may be worried about, you know, you putting in little amounts and, you know, that not being good enough. And it goes back to that other saying that you were talking about, like little acts matter, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a really good one.
Wow, they're all interlinked.
Yeah. We didn't even plan this, guys. It just happened to link. So the next one in Urdu is Hava ka rukt badalta hai magar darakt apni jadon se nahi hilta. So the wind changes direction but the tree stays rooted. So this one's about holding your values while adapting to new circumstances or environments where you may feel challenged. If your foundations are strong, no one can shake you. I know this is easier said than done because it's essentially talking about putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations which you may not like, but if you have like certain values and foundations that are strong, then even if that place is uncomfortable to be in, you're able to still remain true to yourself.
Yeah.
And I know I just spoke about Mehdi Hassan, but I don't know if you saw that recent Jubilee debate.
The one with the far right people, that was pretty intense. I saw that.
I was like, if I was in that situation, I do love debating, don't get me wrong, but I would lose it. Like those people were rage baiting,
no, they were.
to the furthest degree. Like it was
a
guy
who was like, what did he say? You know the one, he was like sympathizing with Nazis, basically, and saying that's all okay, basically.
He literally admitted that he was a fascist.
Yeah,
and I was like, what?
I saw an update recently. By the way, he got fired from his job.
But did you see?
And then he set up a GoFundMe.
He's earned over 20k pounds.
That's crazy.
He's still earning. It just makes me so mad. But anyway, the point was Mehdi Hassan managed to stay calm in that. Like if that was me, I think I'd cry out of frustration.
Yeah.
And basically this kind of relates to this concept in Islam that's known as istiqamah, which is staying firm on the straight path no matter how the wind may blow you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I like that one.
Thank you.
So the next proverb again is in Swahili, and my gosh, it's a hard one to pronounce, but it says Damu zito kuliko maji, which means blood is thicker than water. And I think this sort of speaks to the importance of familial ties, which is a theme we see a lot in Islam. So if you remember our previous episode with Sarah Kazmi, we learned that Islam encourages the rekindling of familial bonds and that severing that tie is greatly disliked. Of course, there are like exceptions to the rule, so I don't know if you're in like a really abusive relationship or something of that sort, but in general, family bonds help us feel emotionally secure, build resilience, a sense of community, and a safe space where we can be loved and accepted. And obviously this is great for reducing loneliness, and I'm sure Fatima can tell us all about the psychological benefits of that. But I also think that this proverb is powerful because it encourages community and leaning on our support systems. again, I think humans are social creatures, and so learning when to do so is a great skill. Like they say, it takes a village.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice point. I think it's so interesting because I like that point that you added in about the community, because when you think of this one, you do think of like your family and its importance. But I think oftentimes we don't realize how much our community is part of that.
Yeah.
Almost, you know, blood-like relationship, because in Islam especially, like we give so much importance to family, friends, and I guess this one just talks about its value here. The next Urdu one is ek haath se taali nahi bajti. You can't clap with one hand. I like the imagery of this one because you can literally try and it it doesn't work. So the point of this one is that conflict and cooperation both require two parties. It's like how there's always two sides to a story. And I think this one can be a little bit hard to swallow if you're the one being told it.
Yeah.
Because they're basically telling you to look in the mirror. And it calls for personal accountability and recognizing our role in situations too. And sometimes these proverbs can be harsh, but they tell us the bitter truth that kind of just needs to be said.
No, that's so true. An interesting thing to think about is like we've probably like someone's upset us at some point in our life, but then what if you hold, like you said, that mirror up to yourself and you think, well, how many times have like maybe I've said something that's really stuck with someone and they still think about it, or I don't know, you could have been like the villain in someone else's story.
I know. It's scary to think
I don't
about,
like to think about that.
Yeah, I hope I've not done that. Apologies, everybody.
Actually, what you just said was as a joke, but you know when they're like, God can forgive you for all your sins, but if you've wronged someone,
Facts.
like God can never forgive you for that unless you go and personally seek it from that person first. Wow, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
But it's important to think about.
I think that really scares me because you like sometimes you could have done something and you don't even know because that person hasn't told you.
Yeah. Ooh, uncomfortable to think about.
Shivers down my spine.
Okay, next one. So this one reads, "Dudh jo barelo, chash bhi fuki fuki ne piye." So it means the one who is burnt by hot milk will only drink chash after blowing it. So chash is a cold yogurt-based drink. And in this context, the one who's been burnt by hot milk is like sort of over-suspicious, even of something harmless. And this proverb, I think, could encourage you to be level-headed and not assume the worst of each situation. So yes, you may have gotten hurt once, you may have had a bad experience, but ruminating on that and living in fear might make you miss out on something really good. So psychologically, rumination or dwelling on a negative thought, feeling, or even a past event can have negative effects, including actually making your depression worse, as well as anxiety, impairing your problem solving, and even hindering effective action. So I think instead, the key is to use that experience positively, learn from it, and let it sort of embolden you to try again and come back stronger. Having said all of that, there could also be a positive aspect to it because it might encourage you not to trust people so blindly.
We have an Urdu equivalent of it, which is like dudh ka jala chash bhi pooke. Pooke pina, something like that. It's literally exactly that. Yeah. But I think that one is so cool.
Yeah.
Because I think you can even relate this to like PTSD.
Yeah.
Because
definitely.
You've been like burnt once. To avoid that, you're even scared of like those moments which are not anything like it. Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think sometimes you can be helpless or you can feel helpless when you do this. But like you said, you can take it positively as well, that not every situation is like that one, and you kind of need to open up to that.
You have no other choice basically to let your guard down, because if you never do,
you'll always
if you never try, you'll never know, right? You'll always be living in fear. So I think it's a very powerful one.
So this next one is Akal Badi Ki Bhais. So
we have literally the same thing.
Is it? So what's bigger, your intellect or a buffalo? So this is another like sarcastic funny one that's used in situations where common sense is ignored. I remember when I was a kid, I'd always be like, well, if we're talking size-wise, obviously the buffalo is bigger, but if we're talking smart-wise, then our brain wins. And I guess that's why it's a clever proverb, because people tend to value power and size more than logic sometimes, where it may be more necessary. But then also, this one's not always about power. but literally using common sense when you're impatient, for example, and you keep pressing the lift button over and over again, but it's not like it's not
gonna come any faster.
Yeah, exactly. So it's basically that idea of those little moments that we have where logic should be obvious, but we act like we don't see it. And sometimes our brains switch to autopilot and miss that obvious.
Yeah.
So it may not always be used for something super deep, but the sarcastic nature of it is meant to kind of wake you up from that.
I love that.
That's
a really good one. Guys, this next one is another Swahili proverb, and it's so difficult to say.
You know what? You've been saying that, but you've been doing really well so
no,
far.
but this one's actually like really hard. It's like Asiyasikia lamuku. I can't even do it. Should I just like insert a clip of Google Translate saying it?
You can do that. You can do that.
Asiyesikia la mkuu huvunjika guu.
This proverb literally translates to, he who does not listen to the elder breaks his leg. So basically, like, people who don't heed the counsel of elders who are wiser than them will grow to regret it, because like people who are older than you obviously have a lot more life experience. They may have gone through the same thing that you're going through, and I think oftentimes we're like, oh no, but it's different now, like what would you know? But there's still always like some common ground and something you can learn from them. So yeah, just emphasizes the importance of listening to and respecting the advice of elders with more experience than you.
Yeah, I think that one is like a timeless one, right?
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I think whatever century you're in, you may think you're smarter than an old person because you're like living in, I don't know, the modern times or whatever, but someone's past is like a whole life that they've lived, so they will know more than you. Like, you can't really argue with that.
I think I used to feel like that a lot when I was younger, like not always wanting to take advice from elders because it'd be like, oh, but I can figure out myself, or I know better than you. But it's like, then it'll come back to bite you. And then they'll be like, I told you so, and you'd be like, oh, I wish I would have listened.
I think it's so funny because I'm still just like living with my parents, and I'm not like, I don't have like kids or anything, but like having my little brother, it's so funny because I treat him the same way that my parents treated me. Like they've gone so soft, but I'll be like the bad police, I'll be a bit harsh on him. I'll be like, no, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. So it is funny to think about that when you become older yourself, you end up repeating those same things and you realize, oh, that did hold weight. Or
like, I don't know if your mom has ever told you, she'll be like, when you're my age, then you'll know. And then you like start to understand.
And you're like, no, I won't. I will.
Sometimes it sounds really funny. Like I got told the other day, wrap a garlic around your fingernail with masking tape, because like on this thumb, basically, it's so gross, guys, and I'm glad you can't see it on camera, but it's turning green for some reason. I don't know why, and it's always on this thumb. Maybe I like knocked it. No, maybe I knocked it on something, but anyway, it looks like fungusy. Yuck.
Okay, it doesn't look that bad, guys. She's actually exaggerating. It just looks like a little green line.
But she said, wrap it in like ginger or garlic with masking tape.
I actually really believe in like, what do you call it, like herbs and stuff. I think the stuff that our parents kind of suggest sometimes is better than like the medicines that we take. This is funny, guys. My dad's actually a doctor, so the fact that I'm backing both here is not it's because
like they're going against each other.
To be fair, my dad does also agree with like the herbal things. The most he'll recommend to go for is like paracetamol. So, you know, he's not a big drug doser either.
They can go hand in hand anyway.
They can go hand in hand, yeah.
Your turn.
So this next one is Uchi Dukan Pike Pakwan. So a flashy designer shop with tasteless food. So basically it's saying, don't be deceived by something that simply looks pretty on the outside, that the substance in itself matters more. It's kind of crazy that this proverb is probably ancient, but probably more relevant than ever. I think in our time. Because it looks like historically we've always been obsessed with appearance over reality. And would you say that's like marketing these days?
I mean, you're only highlighting like the good aspects of something and trying to sell it to people, but maybe not showing the full reality. Wait, is that what you meant by it?
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant by it. Yeah, because I feel like when there's ads and things, obviously make the product seem so insane that you're
Yeah.
like, whoa, like I need that, you know,
Yeah.
on my shelf. But it is sometimes false advertising as well.
Yeah.
Like, you know how they show like food sometimes?
Yeah.
When I found this out, I was actually heartbroken because I was like, how have I been so blind?
Yeah.
Like, they don't actually, when they show food in ads, that's not real food.
It's
like
fake food.
Yeah,
to
it's fake
make
food.
it look appealing.
That's
Yeah.
so crazy. Like, that's like, come on, that's what you're advertising. You're advertising how good the food is. So just use real food.
I think like sometimes they use scarcity mindset to like rush you or make you frightful that, oh, if I don't have this, I'm missing out on something, or I need to have it. So like they're making you think it's an essential need basically, but
Labubu's.
it's not. It's Labubu's.
Cough,
Oh
cough.
my gosh. Don't get me started on, everyone knows, well, not everyone, but
Everybody
I
knows.
feel so strongly about Labubu's. I mean, if it's your thing, it's your thing.
Yeah.
I just think your money could be so much better spent, but then again, who am I to talk? Maybe I spend my money on things that people wouldn't agree with.
Yeah, you know, I actually
That's
do
all.
have a bit of a problem, I won't lie. I am a bit of a retail therapy I do strongly believe in. Well, I'm sorry, Labubus are just ugly. Cancel me right now, I don't care. They're so ugly and scary looking.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
low-key
even
they
want
are
that on my
scary.
bag.
Nice. So I think like what you're trying to say is that this proverb is a warning about consumer culture's obsession with like image rather than value.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's saying it before it was even a thing, you know, back in the day. And it's applicable to so many trendy things. Like we talked about Labubus, but also these jewelry brands like Van Cleef or Tiffany & Co. They're so expensive that you'd think you're paying for like real gold, when often it's just a thin metal band that's been gold plated, yet they're charging over 1 to 5k plus. And that's like on the low side. Sometimes they're even 20k plus.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. Okay, so this next one, I'm kind of going off the dome a little bit. My mom sent it to me, and it reads Jara Jugya Teare Sawar, I think, if I've read that correctly. But it means better late than never. And I like to think of, well, you can think of this Islamically in terms of like repentance. Let's say you've made some mistakes and you've lived a sinful life. I think what shaitan would want you to think is like, oh, it's over for you. You've gone so far
Very good
at this point that you're destined for hell basically. But that's not necessarily true, because we know that God is the Almighty, All-Merciful. Like there's always a point of return for you. So yeah, in this context, it is better late than never. There's always a chance for you to repent and turn a new leaf.
I like it. And I think it can be applied to so many other things as well, aside from repentance. Like revision, for example. You're like, oh, I didn't bother revising and now I'm going to flop. So I'm just going to bismillah it, or like Rabbi zidni ilma it. But you could still, you know, open up that book, read as much as you can before it starts. Like, you think
it'll
it's
still
not going to
make
help,
some difference.
but yeah, it'll make some difference. Better than nothing at all.
That's so true. Oh, you know what it makes me think of? When I was at university, like for example, the odd time, like if I would be late for a lecture, I hated that feeling of walking into a lecture theatre late, because our like theatres were really big. It'd have like hundreds of people walking in, and then you feel like everyone's staring at you. Sometimes I'd be like, oh,
And
I'm
let me
late.
just go home.
I'm just not gonna go. Like I'll go to the library and like read up on it. But then you just think that's so silly. Like you're paying so much for this degree. It's literally just better to go in late than not at all. People might look at you, but at least you showed up.
Yeah, that relates to what I'm struggling with right now. So I've finally joined the gym. Remember in our goal setting episode, I was like, oh, I want to join the gym. I want to be healthier or whatever. Anyway, I finally managed to do that, but I'm not able to go in as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm just like, oh, I just spent this whole day doing something important that was necessary, so I can't go. But Qasim my brother, always encourages me and says, I think the days when it's the hardest for you to go, like push yourself.
That's when you have to.
Yeah.
Nice.
So this next one is doodh ka doodh or pani ka pani. So milk's milk and water's water. One may try to dilute it with the other, but it becomes easy to tell, right?
Yeah.
This one's about clearly distinguishing the truth from falsehood, or to separate the genuine from the fake. It kind of relates to what we talked about in our 20 things we learned in our 20s episode.
Yeah.
About how if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes things are black and white, and not gray. So you have to know whether you're actively standing for what's right or not. In today's world of fake news and filters, this proverb does feel like prophetic, because it's about being able to look at a situation and say, this is propaganda or manipulation, whereas this is the truth. And I think Islam always commands us to stand firmly for justice, even if it's against ourselves. Like, you know, when we talk about standing on your own nafs. And this proverb to me feels like a reminder about having clarity and being just and fair essentially matter more than convenience.
Yeah, like sometimes doing what's right isn't necessarily easy, but you still have to do it because you know that is what's right. It's the truth. Yeah, love that. Very nice. Okay, the final Swahili proverb that I have is Mapanda Nagazi Hashuka. Again, I'm kind of going off the dome here, but it translates to he who climbs the ladder must come down. So that basically means like the fame or the success that you're chasing in life isn't always, like, it's not a permanent state. Life has ups and downs. And so it's encouraging you to stay humble because fortunes can very quickly change. And again, this makes me think of the whole cancel culture thing. Like, you can be on top of the world, you can be so revered, and then one day it can all just be ripped away from you. So I think it's a good reminder to stay grounded and stay humble, because you never know what can happen. People are very fickle.
Cool. Yeah, that, I think that one, again, it's one of those harsh ones, but it's so true. Like, if you physically imagine it, you can't just stay at the ladder all the time, like on top of a ladder all the time. You do have to, like, realistically, you have to come back down.
You can't constantly experience the best parts of life,
the glory.
And you know what, that's actually a good thing, because when you have the lows, it makes you appreciate the highs, which is so cliche, but it's literally true.
I think in this context, it just makes us, like, you know, when you're always like, why can't things just always be good? I think in this context, it just makes so much sense, because you, like, it would be uncomfortable for you to just be at the top the whole time, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's kind of like you wouldn't be able to sustain that emotion constantly. Like, imagine always being ecstatic, like always being super happy. I feel like it would all come crashing down. Like, it would be so hard to keep up that momentum. And so sometimes you need days where things aren't as good, and it makes you appreciate those times.
And I think this is why sometimes, and usually we like frown when we hear this, but when celebrities are sometimes like, oh my god, I hate being known because then I can't go out in public. But when you think about it, it's kind of peak actually, that they can't even leave their house to like do grocery shopping without being recognized or people dying over them. Yeah,
like the most basic need that we can think of, something as simple as going to a grocery store because you've run out of milk. You can't do that because you might get accosted by someone.
Yeah. And like, I'm not saying that, you know, we should feel bad for them, or I mean, you can, I'm not saying you can't, but I just mean like it really puts things into perspective that the little things that we can do, they want those little things, but they can't get it, despite having everything, you know, within the palm of their hands.
Yeah.
Okay, the final Urdu proverb that I have is Ek minar mein do talwarein nahi ho sakti. So the literal translation for this is two swords cannot coexist in one tower. I tend to relate this one to working with people. I find that it's about recognizing people, because two powerful or dominant personalities cannot share the same position or space without conflict.
Yeah.
I think this one highlights the inevitability of struggle or rivalry when two leaders or strong-willed individuals try to assert control in the same domain. It's like two kings can't control one kingdom.
Yeah.
And I mean, British history is filled with these examples, like Elizabeth and Mary Queen of Scots, Charles I versus the Parliament. You know, someone ended up dying. The other one is the Wars of the Roses, York versus Lancaster. Literally decades of bloodshed because two royal houses wanted the same crown. You could even argue this proverb was written for them, but, you know, it's not, because we're the... But the point is, when divided, ultimate authority leads to chaos. Even the Quran in Surah Anbiya verse 22, I believe, it says, if there were any other gods beside Allah, the heavens and earth would fall apart. So sometimes harmony only comes when roles are clear.
So those are all the proverbs that we had for today, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. I know it was a little bit more, I think a bit more chit-chatty, a bit more lighthearted than what we usually talk about, but I think that's necessary sometimes. And I mean, like you said at the start, a lot of these proverbs, like our parents kind of just said without thinking about it. All of them are kind of like funny, but there's so much wisdom in them actually
Yeah.
when you come to digest them. Because I'm not gonna lie, when Fatima like brought up this topic to me, the examples she gave me were really good, but I was like, will I be able to flesh this conversation out for a long time? But then once I started researching, I was like, okay, wow, there's actually like a lot of truth in these statements.
Yeah.
So
I thought as South Asians, like everyone does this, but in our family particularly, like we love proverbs. Like we literally we say them in everyday conversations, but we literally have like games where we'll test how many like we know. Like
Yeah.
it's a big part of our like family. So we hope that I think you kind of got that little gist of like a little bit, getting to know us as people as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really fun episode
It was fun.
to do.
I'm glad that we got to do this. And thank you all for listening. And inshallah, tune in again. And we'll speak to you very soon.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe wherever you're listening. Save the episode, I think, on Spotify.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.